And welcome to the Wednesday, November 3rd Town Council work session that we will begin and call to order at 6:01 p.m. Our roll call of members are all present with the exception of Mr. Duggan, who is en route right now. So he'll be here a little bit late. He had a work meeting that ran late. Approval of the agenda. Have approval of the agenda. Do the second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving forward. Council member liaison and commission reports. I will start. Karen, start on this side with you. I'm sorry, Dr. Sullivan.
Okay, so the Alliance of Colonial Beach Community Organizations held its October meeting in conjunction with Dr. John Accordino and his graduate students at VCU, who are collecting market analysis data for the town of Colonial Beach. Their November meeting will be in person, as long as we get everything confirmed. The Colonial Beach Eagles wanted me to let you know that the Firefighters Cancer Foundation fundraiser is Saturday, November 20th from 12 to 7. Music, food, raffle, silent auction, and an evening band. All proceeds go to the Firefighters Cancer Foundation. Last year, the Eagles state president raised over $80,000 for the Guadalupe Free Clinic here in Colonial Beach. This year, the incoming state president is going to raise money for a Marine Corps veteran who lost both legs, 2 fingers, and sustained other life-altering injuries while serving in Afghanistan. A house will be built using proceeds from the raffle. To purchase a ticket, visit the Eagles at 517 Colonial Avenue or call 804-224-4315 after 3 p.m. on weekdays or after 12 on the weekend. The Guadalupe Free Clinic has resumed giving COVID booster shots. The clinic will be at the Colonial Beach Community Center on Saturday from 9 to 11 on November 6th, 13th, and 20th. We tried doing flu shots today. We gave out 6 over a 2-hour period. So the clinic has decided that's probably not a great need in the community. However, if you need a flu shot and want to use the Guadalupe Free Clinic, you can call them and make arrangements with Beth. The Chamber of Commerce reports that the golf cart parade was a success with 26 decorated carts. They want to remind everybody that the Rockfish Tournament will be November 12th, 13th, and 14th at the Colonial Beach Yacht Center. That Santa's Winter Wonderland and Festival Committee are getting ready to start setting up for Christmas and our winter holidays. They did interviews with VCU graduate classes, the graduate class, and they've been completed, and looking forward to the results in a report that will be presented to the town. The Economic Development Committee met with Jamie Scully from the Tallheimer Group in an effort to support the recruitment of potential businesses for the new commercial space being developed by the Dotson Group. And Mr. Mike Fitzpatrick met with Susan French-Janace from Flax Shack to discuss ways that the Economic Development Committee can support marketing efforts for the town. Downtown Colonial Beach, they have completed their marketing prospectus, and they are distributing that to real estate agents and commercial lending departments at area banks. Next, they'll move on to targeted businesses, investors, the Northern Neck Planning Commission, and other entities. The forestry tree planting project has had its successes and failures or difficulties. 14 trees and shrubs were planted along Colonial Avenue by volunteers. 10 of the 15 trees planted on the riverfront were washed out as part of the damage from the storm surge last weekend. 5 that survived were actually in the grassy areas, and the 10 have been salvaged and are awaiting decisions on where to replant. They want to make sure that you put April 9th, 2022 on your calendar for the live Osprey Festival, which will be going live for the first time in the last 2 years. It was virtual. The Colonial Beach Community Foundation has received, this is a biggie, I'm not sure if this has slipped out yet or not, but they wanted to announce they have received an anonymous donation for $52,000 for new holiday streetlights for Colonial Avenue and Washington Avenue and other parts of downtown. The foundation has formally changed the name of its fund that they use to purchase gift cards. That new fund is going to be redefined as the Community Crisis Fund, and it will be used to serve the needs of the community during emergencies. They awarded a grant to Green Space for their efforts in supporting the planting of the trees downtown. They would like to thank Lee Blunt and Hawthorne Mercantile, who raised over $3,000 in donations from the karaoke contest. And those funds will be used for improvements at the community center. The foundation and the Chamber of Commerce co-sponsored the candidate forum for candidates running for council, which was well attended. And they would also like to thank Tom Tilt, who will be launching a general fundraiser through the sale of holiday ornaments for the Love Golf Cart. And they're proud to announce that WWER, our community radio station, is now licensed in its own name and no longer under the foundation. They count this as a very successful initiative where the foundation launched and incubated a new project here in town. A reminder from the Colonial Beach Rescue Squad that if you're looking to become an EMT or an EMR, get your foot in the door of a rescue squad, fire department, or hospital. You should sign up for the EMT EMR class at Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department to start in January. There is a cost involved. If you serve with one of these departments, you can get some of that cost reimbursed when you start working with them. For more information, please call Les Greeley at 540-846-5735. The Colonial Beach Volunteer Fire Department says that the Santa Run will take place on December 11th and 18th. See their Facebook page for the routes. Green Space continues to raise funds by raffling off an original artwork called A View from a Point. Green Space has been notified that the ADA access ramp was washed out to sea during the tidal surge and storm. And they are applying for a grant from Mountain Dew to help with the cost for replacement. And they continue to raise funds for benches, memorial benches at Eleanor Park. And that looks like that's it.
All right, Mr. Allison.
So starting off, Parks and Rec Commission meeting was canceled due to the voting yesterday. So I don't have an update for them. I believe they're going to try to reschedule the meeting. Okay. For Public Works, the paint that was on back order for the curbs, we finally have that arrived. So painting will commence as the weather permits and also scheduling. And also Castlewood Park, the updates and upgrades to that. We recently got a heavy machinery operator that will be doing the grading for that, which will begin after Thanksgiving. And they're currently getting quotes for additional fencing. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Casey.
Planning Commission met on the 28th of October. During that meeting, they had a tie vote on the approval of the subdivision preliminary plat of Dotson Development. The current plan is to revote this item on November 18th at 17th or 5:30 in the afternoon. So the staff will be working with getting with the Planning Commission members to help clarify some of the issues, concerns that were on the plat. Secondly, Maureen McCabe had attended her last meeting. And so I personally want to thank her for her efforts she put forth on the Planning Commission since I was on there and for the years since then. I know you work closely with her and talked to the clerk about maybe getting another item on the agenda in the near future to recognize her more formally. But with that said, it means there's going to be another seat open on the planning commission for, so the planning commission, we're looking for citizens to hopefully step up and try to volunteer to fill that seat. Won't fill their shoes, but fill their seat though. Third, the Community Resiliency Score Workshop, CRS workshop, really within the planning commission's purview. We'll hold this workshop at this location on 12 November from 10 to 3. That's the Friday after Veterans Day. The Three Rivers District Planner will help facilitate that. So that's good to have. We'll have him there. I plan on attending, and I don't know, I think the town manager mentioned she's going to try to get there too, but any participation is going to be greatly appreciated. And
Can you
last,
remind people what that's for?
the CRS, Community Resiliency. So it's all to do with the resiliency work that's been done in the past, and this is now starting a, within our own, we have a resiliency committee within the planning commission, and that's being led by Mr. Tree Matt. So this is, again, bringing together some of the expertise and planners to look at what ways that we can improve our resiliency in town that would, in the long run, help lower insurance for flood insurance and other things like that. So, and then lastly, not in line with the planning commission, but I just want to thank Dahlgren and the South Potomac support team that they sent about 30 of their chief petty officer selects, so young E4s to E5s. About 30 of them showed up on Sunday to help us and Public Works do a lot of cleanup, and all along the boardwalk over by where the riverboat is and all the way down Irby. Literally, I would say 200 bags of debris at least were picked up and hauled by these young sailors who just wanted to pitch in and help us out as a community. So special thanks to them. That's all I have.
Mr. Meisier?
Well, it appears that our initial plan for relocating the rescue squad to 700 Colonial was overly optimistic. So that will be delayed for, we hope to have it done by next summer, but that will be delayed another year.
Ms. Roberts?
Was quick. Okay. As far as the school system is concerned, Dr. Turner's last day was last Friday, October 29th. He was here for a little over 3 years. I met with Mrs. Payne. She is the board chair, and had the pleasure of being reacquainted with Dr. David Hollerman, who will be the interim superintendent. He hails from Matthews County, and he and I worked together when we started the county-wide gifted program that is now housed with RCC. So he will start next Monday. And apparently the principals of both schools are really gearing up and getting it into school right now. I've heard of some strange things that Dr. Sears is doing, but apparently I like dressing up and different things like that, things that he does over the announcements in the morning. So I plan on meeting with him and Mrs. Coates in the very near future, so I can make a let everybody know how that's all going at our next meeting.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet. I also met the interim
Yeah.
superintendent this morning.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure to meet him. I like to give kudos out and thanks to Sergeant Wright. I have received 2 different citizen outreaches to me personally about the work that she's doing in the community and her excellent response to some very possibly difficult situations. And so I just wanted to quickly recognize that. I know she's not here tonight, but pass that on for us. Also to Barry and Joni Millward, who added a recycling of fishing line receptacle to the town pier. I'm not sure if it's still there after the tide just heard, but I'd still like to recognize their efforts. I know that they have been active in saving some of the wildlife around that is damaged by those kinds of things. And so we worked with them to create an MOU for getting the recycling center for the fishing line there. And hopefully we can make sure that that stays intact. I know that they're going to look out for it. I also have several other big announcements to make. This has been a very big week, everybody. So I guess I should start with yesterday. I'll work my way backwards maybe with the election. And I want to thank all of the candidates for the time and effort and energy it took. I also want to thank, I know Mr. Duggan is not here right now, but both Mr. Allison and Mr. Duggan for their service through this time as well. It's really been a pleasure to work with them. I'm looking forward to working with new members as well. I see Mr. Williams out there and Ms. Clement as well. So thank you for being here tonight and your service and duty so far. The election results are not final yet or certified, so we'll see until Friday about final for that. Also, so that was Tuesday. Monday, I met with Congressman Whitman and relayed to him our legislative requests for sponsorship, specifically to assistance with our drainage area, our municipal pier, and coastal resilience, which was a timely meeting considering the tidal surge that we had just experienced and the significant loss in our beachfront and significant damage to the pier. And hopefully his team is going to work with us on finding some ways forward with that as well. I never would have wanted a tidal surge to happen, but if it could happen 2 days before I get a congressman's ear, that I guess we'll be optimistic about that. And then working my way back as well is to the emergency, where operations ran fairly smoothly considering it was a hurricane style effect without the hurricane that we could track for days and days coming. So I just would like to say thank you to the police department, especially to Public Works, to our town manager, to Bill Cease, Emergency Management from Westmoreland County, and the coordination with Rob Murphy, Deputy Town Manager, who has been through these things a time or two, and his experience shows. Specifically, our town manager had gone through emergency operations with the team and also with council ahead of time in some training sessions. I would say it was put to use. Everything ran as smoothly as it possibly could, considering, you know, the significant damage that was unavoidable. Of course, I can't stop the tide surge. I wish I could, but I can't. And also the assistance of the naval base, as Mr. Capri mentioned. 30 or more volunteers came out from the base. They offered support. We have a very strong relationship with the base, and I think that shows when they call us up and say, how can we help? What can we do? Who can we send? And so just a very big thank you to them as well. Recovery is still ongoing, obviously, and there'll be more updates on that to come. And then prior to that, it's a big week, guys, was the grant award from VLCF, which is the largest grant award that the town has received in the last at least 5 years, if not longer. And I think Heather has some, there's a lot of questions around this. We are still waiting to present what the final kind of product of the grant looks like. So that's not on the agenda tonight, but I didn't want to delay the announcement of it. This was also in collaboration with our Richmond legislatures. And so just to clarify, it's $387,416,000. There is no match. It's hard for me to read that, Heather. There you go. This is not a sale of property. The town is not obligated to a preliminary site plan. The town does maintain property ownership. The town can build on the property. The town can monetize the property. And while acceptance of the grant does not require a public hearing, we will indeed be anticipating holding one because we would like to hear from the citizens about this unique opportunity. So here's that. So lots of big things. That's all I have there. Presentations. I got a lot on this agenda, so we're gonna keep moving. I would like to present a service award to Mr. Juan Aranda, who I don't believe is here. Doesn't surprise me though, does it?
No. Really.
I will personally make sure I go and shake his hand though. For his dedication and 5 years of service to the town of Colonial Beach. I'm sure he wants that envelope. Okay. What is this? Oh. Yeah. Oh, you just want to see that? I don't think you can read them. Okay. Oh, okay, so they're including this in supplemental. Okay, all right, sorry, some logistics here. That's in a lot of citizen input tonight, it's exciting. All right, so with that, we'll move forward to citizen input. Make sure you please let Mr. Aranda know what help he is to Public Works, and he always has a smile on his face. I'm sorry, I have to stop and say that because not everybody in the audience and not everybody in town maybe sees these Public Works guys all the time. But he particularly has a positive attitude, willing to help always. You know, whether it's pick up a shovel or move something, or I don't know, you know, all the things that they have to do. And he just, it's always has a positive attitude about it. I think it's infectious in a good way within the group of guys there. And so it's a really appreciative of his service to the town.
I'll pass it on to one person.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, citizen input. Just before I open it up for citizen input, I'd like to note that there are 2 other items on the agenda for particular citizen input, just in case there's any confusion about that. This is general citizen input for anything, but under the Chief of Police selection process, we're going to have a presentation by Dana Shard of the Virginia Chiefs Police Association. We'll be asking if you have any input as to what you're looking for as a citizen, you know, in the next police chief. And then the other one is in the municipal parking discussion. I know there's a lot of comments about parking all the time, so we're trying to start a discussion and evaluation of how that's going in that section. Okay, so with that, I will open up citizen input. I do provide 3 minutes. I do stay strict to it. Days like today, I miss Mr. Walter Kern. 1, because he set the example, but 2, because he also cleaned up all the yard signs from after the election. So hopefully he's doing okay. All right, with that, I will start with Mr. Steve Serby.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Steve Serby, 2100 North Riverfront Drive. I want to tag on to what you said about Juan. Juan worked for me before he came to the town. Every one of my clients loved him. I mean, he's just great. I didn't check the thing where I would like a response to the items I bring up, if you would. One thing that kind of, reason I came up is looking at this under new business resolution 4921, which is a declaration of local emergency. Reminded me of an issue in the last council when it actually started COVID, where we were implementing new resolutions, but we already had resolutions in place that told us contrary to the resolutions that were being brought forward. This seems to be a consistent thing that we go through here in town, where we don't go back and either eliminate or vacate a resolution and put a new one in its place, nor do we have any listing or place where resolutions can be looked up. All we can do is look up ordinances on the internet. There are no resolutions. There's more resolutions in the town than there are ordinances. And I don't believe any of them have ever been updated and deleted. Now, anytime anything goes through the House in Richmond, it has a history with it of all the past things that pertain to it. And it brings it forward so that everything can be cleaned up at once. I started bugging Mike Hamm, three mayors ago about that very issue, and Andre Arard about trying to bring a history of an issue forward for discussion with the council, instead of just bringing it up as a brand new item that a council who never heard about it before has never heard of. So I think that we need to get history on resolutions. I think we ought to have a list of resolutions on the internet, on the website with the availability to tag into them. And then, like I said, I think a background on all of them. One other question I had is, and I'm not real sure, I looked for it. When we have a special election, we voted in 2 new council members, or we'll have by Friday anyhow. Are they sworn in immediately, or do they have to wait till the first of the year? How is that done? Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Armstrong?
Good evening, everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Dan Armstrong.
Will you remove your face mask just while you speak so that we can hear you better? Thank you, appreciate it.
For those that don't know me, my name is Dan Armstrong with AWC Engineering, and I'm the Sunset Cove Development Project Manager. I was asked to give an update on the Sunset Cove development. So I know I only had 3 minutes, so I'm going to be brief. Real quick, we're about a month delayed, so the development is looking like it will not have a completion date until approximately December the 15th. Where we stand right now, we are currently installing the main water line. If you may have noticed, we shut down Lynn Haven right around the water tower, and I do want to apologize to everyone who was shut down for a day longer than what was intended. That was due to just being very careful around the force main sewer line. We like to say, I like to err on the side of the caution. So I apologize for that. It's now open. The water line tap on Livingstone should be occurring next week. So expect a similar delay. Hopefully that'll go a lot smoother, so we can have that all knocked out in one day. Aside from that, the next step is the sanitary sewer, so we'll have to close the roads down for that as well. Only I don't know when that pipe is gonna be on site yet, so we can't schedule that at this point. The site has been stabilized all along Monroe Bay, and where the town drainage easement comes out from Livingstone to the bay. So there should no longer be any risk of any sediment discharges from the site. I know that there was a concern that was on social media at one point about some cloudiness in the bay right around where the town has a drainage easement and borders the Sunset Cove development. So that is all stabilized. So you should no longer see any potential discharges from the site moving forward. I did want to talk about a couple of other concerns. Well, that was one concern, was discharges into the bay that has been addressed.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up, but if you submit a update to us in writing, that would be helpful.
Not that brief.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you, Public Works and CBPD and everyone else for moving that along. So thank you guys.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Leroy. Yeah, okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Walter Leroy, 302 Monroe Point Drive. I'm a 5-year, almost 6-year resident of Colonial Beach. Been using the parks and the green spaces here for a while now. Lucky enough that I'm actually the president of Green Space right now. So I'd like to encourage all of you, when the time comes, to vote yes to the easement, the conservation easement for Eleanor Park. It's been a long time coming. I spoke to many members of Green Space and we were very ecstatic about the award of that grant. And we hope that it is taken seriously and that you guys will vote yes to receive it, accept it, and move forward in that manner. That's what I wanted to say. I know there's going to be comment period for the public in the future, and you'll be hearing from me again in the future on it. But I think it's important enough to not wait for that period to start vocalizing how we want to encourage you to vote. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. I'd first like to put on my foundation president hat for just a second and underscore a couple of things that Councilwoman Sullivan, thank you. Sorry, I had a senior moment there. Anyway, what Councilwoman Sullivan was saying, the foundation is thrilled to have received this $52,000 award for the new lights that will go up and down Colonial Avenue and also on Washington. I think elsewhere. I think it's going to be such a positive experience for the town to see these new lights come up. It's always a little sad. I know Public Works does the best that they can with the lights that they've had, but it's going to be really exciting to have some new lights. Also, the foundation is super thrilled, as Dr. Sullivan said, that we were able to spin off the radio station. When the foundation took on that project a couple of years ago, we really didn't know how it was going to go, and we didn't know what kind of financial obligations and commitments we were getting ourselves into. But in fact, the radio station has really touched a nerve, and the community has really come out and supported it in such a significant way that the radio station has been able to now raise its own funds. We've transferred the license to them just in this past week. So it's such a success story for us that we're thrilled. The second point I'd like to take my foundation hat off and put on my resident hat. And by the way, I live at 1321 Lossing Avenue, and I'd like to say I was thrilled to see the report on the town's website about the awarding of the grant for the conservation easement. And I also was particularly interested in seeing your clarification that you brought up on the screen a few minutes ago. This issue has been so divisive for so long for the community, and hopefully this grant will put all of that to rest. And I also hope that it will also put to rest some of the personal criticism and attacks that I have gotten on, and my husband have gotten on some of the social media sites. I tell you what, it's exhausting to be working so hard, doing so much volunteer work for the town, only to be criticized on social media. So hopefully we can put all of this to bed, and we can move on, and we can put this behind us. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holman?
Jeanette Holman, 216 Monroe Bay Avenue. I want to, what Eric just said about he and his husband being harassed on public media. This was not about, Eleanor Park was not about residents having a view of the river. It was, I believe Eleanor Park should be maintained as a park because it was left to our town for that reason. So quite simply, it would be an unethical act on the part of the town council to not approve of this grant and vote to accept the grant. It's a wonderful, wonderful benefit to our town. And with all the building that's going on in the next year in town, maintaining this park is a very important thing to me.
So please vote to accept the wonderful grant that we got. Thank you.
Ms. Mack?
Susan Mack, 1541 Irving Avenue. First, I'd like to thank everybody who was involved with management and cleanup from the tidal surge. It really is wonderful living in a small town and seeing everybody come together. It's a beautiful thing. I too would like to congratulate the potential new council members and appreciate everybody who has served so far. And I'd also like to add my 2 cents and say I would be in support of the conservation easement as well as the original owners intended. Thank you.
Mr. Mack?
Good evening, Brian Tree Mack, 1541 Irving Avenue. I'd like to start off on a personal comment. Again, I'd like to say thank you to the council members who have served, and thank you to folks who ran for council, and congratulations to those who will be announced as having won. Any kind of effort being put into actually putting forth the time to support the town is always a great thing. I would also like to thank everybody who helped with cleanup. You guys did a fantastic job in the town putting out the dumpsters and everything like that. Really remarkable. I would also like to show my support for the easement grant. I like the clarification that was presented earlier. That was very helpful. And I'd like to say thank you to that. And it'd be great to be able to get to a point to where we can put the discussions of this particular issue behind us. To put on my planning commission hat for just a moment, to clarify a little bit on the community resilience scorecard session that's coming up next Friday, not this coming, but the following Friday. That process is not just about flood water and stormwater management. It's about general overall community resilience, whether it's from stormwater, floodwater, economic issues, population issues, all those different things. And through that system, the town, based on what it does in order to retain its resilience to stand up to these kinds of issues, gets a score. And based on that score, one of the benefits that can be provided both to the town as a whole and to the community, individual citizens, is a discount on flood insurance. So some of what we have already have in our plans and our processes in town contribute to that already. And this will help us fashion our processes in such a way as to improve that score and make the discounts, just as a small piece of it, make the insurance discounts a little bit better for each and every citizen. So thank you very much.
You want to read Montalvo? I didn't have anybody else sign up. Is there anybody else in the room? Okay, we'll do those. There's 2 people via email. You got your timer on.
Dr. Lisette Montalvo wrote in that first she would like to thank the winners of last night's election and hope that they can start working in their full capacity on Monday as required by Virginia law. I would like to commend the candidates for a clean political campaign. Although many people connected with some of the candidates have spoken and acted in not so friendly terms, at least in social media, I hope that in spirit of civility and community, we can put aside those differences in the real world. We should approach this coming year as colleagues in order to improve everyone's lives in Colonial Beach. That said, I also want to speak on the topic of crime. Later tonight, we would hear the statistics from the Chief of Police. Please note that page 6 of the report shows a graphic that has been displayed everywhere to show a decline in crime rate. While the graphic clearly shows that the data is a comparison of the cumulative crimes from last year against the crimes so far this year, the graphic is misleading as the year is not yet over. Furthermore, I question the use of data from last year to date versus this year to date only. Does this mean that the report from last year was added to the data from this year and then compared to this year only? In which case, there has to be a decrease because you are comparing 2 years versus some months from this year. Graph 7 and graph 8 of the report show the crime rate from May of 2019 and 2020 to September of the same year. It also provides the graph from May to September this year. Now, please note that there is an increase in robberies and burglaries when compared to last year, 2020. Furthermore, many residents have complained about lack of police presence. This begs the question, how many of these crimes are not reported because police are not around to file a report? Also, the crime stats strangely failed to include comparisons from previous years for certain crimes, including intimidation and rape. Is there a reason why these were excluded? Overall, it is incredibly important to understand that according to many research studies on crime statistics, December is the month in which there is an uptick of
That's
crime.
3 minutes.
Huh?
3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Moffett?
Christy Maupin wrote in, Miss Mayor, members of council, I would like to take an opportunity to thank Mr. Allison for his service to the town this year and to express my disappointment that the town failed to elect him. At the candidates forum, when asked what they see as the most important responsibility of a member of council, all candidates responded that speaking for the people is most important. Mr. Allison is the only one who went a step further and added that the most important responsibility is to do what is best for the future of Colonial Beach. And his forward-thinking answer carried even more weight with me because he is a multi-generational born here, and as a come here, I respect that. And he is a dad and coach, which puts him in touch with the future. That so many residents failed to see the importance of his answer is disheartening. So, Mr. Allison, thank you for your willingness to serve on council, and I hope you will give us another chance next year.
That's all I have for citizen input. We're gonna keep moving forward. Sorry, I forgot I had my mic off. All right, I don't have anybody else signed up for that, so next we'll move to new business. We don't have any old business. I'm sure we have lots of old business, but we don't have any on the agenda. All right, first up is resolution 4921, which is the ratification of the declaration of local emergency. Ms. India Adams Jacobs, would you like to?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The resolution before you ratifies the declaration of local emergency. As you know, the heavy rains and tidal surge and wind gusts began on October 28th, and the town faced severe flooding, and the magnitude of that flooding and that tidal surge warranted local government action. Working with Bill Cease as our emergency operations coordinator with the county, we declared a declaration of local emergency officially on October 29th, 2021 at 1:30. And that declaration was rescinded by me as the Director of Emergency Management on Saturday, October 30th at 4:30. We are still working with the county as we are working to continue to get our numbers on all of the specifics as they're related to the event. And we'll be working with both Bill Cease and getting that information to the state once that's all compiled.
Do I have a motion? Oh, sorry, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second? Okay, is there any discussion?
Second.
All right. There's a survey going to come out from from a damage result or something, I guess, or I just wanted to touch on that.
Yes, working with Bill Cease, we will be providing information to business owners and reaching out to business owners on the severity of damage at their specific locations, specifically looking at our marinas, but also at some of the restaurants and other establishments that were affected.
Okay, so just want to kind of give a heads up to the community that any of the affected establishments, please fill the survey out because your responses back to us help us document this as we compile a report. So I don't know anybody, please just pass the word and have them fill it out. I know sometimes people get paperwork from the town and then they don't always fill it back out. All right. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving forward, public safety quarterly report for the Beach Police Department.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Captain Sarah Lombrania with the Police Department. This is Les Parsons, Patrol Lieutenant. First off, I'd like to start with our mission statement. I'm going to read this to you because it's important to us, and it's also important for us that council hears it, our future council members, as well as our citizens. The Colonial Beach Police Department is committed to providing the highest quality service to our citizens and visitors alike. Acting in partnership with the community, we will be proactive and promote an unbiased and flexible approach to quality of life issues. We also included our core values. I'm not going to read those to you. If you want to read those later, you can, but I would like to touch on our last one as well as our first one. We are representatives of the town of Colonial Beach, and we are responsible for our actions. We will continue doing so with professionalism and integrity. This is our flow chart. Lieutenant Parsons is going to touch on that.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Town Council. The organization chart that you see posted on the board up there is that reflects our authorized staffing levels, not our actual staffing levels. So I want to be clear about that. With the positions that are listed there, the investigator position is, as it indicates, is not staffed at this time. We also have just one patrol sergeant that is staffed right now. That sergeant is actually serving two roles in that, and that's the Sergeant Wright that you referred to earlier this evening. She's serving as the SRO sergeant and also as a patrol sergeant. We have, as far as the officers listed, we have one vacant position and we have three in the academy. One is supposed to be out in December, scheduled to be out in December. The others are supposed to be out early in the spring. So the operational people that we have right now are five patrol officers, one patrol sergeant, and admin. Can I skip one more, please? Thank you. At the outset, the statistics that you're going to be seeing are the analytics that are going to be presented are going to be gleaned from our what we call our RMS system, the report management system. So when somebody enters a report, actually it's initially put in by dispatch and then the officers will fill in what they need to do as far as narratives and whatnot. These statistics come from those reports. So these do not reflect arrests or convictions. It is merely just reported crimes. Okay. From this, you can see that on and this lists incidents from year to date, from last year's year to date, and all the violations that are listed were down on all those. And I'll counsel you that a lot of the movement on these statistics are very minimal. It may appear to be a large movement, but really it's a matter of just a few. We'll discuss that as we go through. I go to the next one. Thank you. In this slide, it shows the top graph will just show the property crimes that were reported from May 2019 through September 2019. The larger amounts or the bigger volume are going to be found in the all other larceny, so any kind of theft type charge. And then on the far right is going to be destruction of property or so those.
Is the highest number on that 8?
Actually, on the top one, no, it's not. They're both 9s.
9.
They're both 9s.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It's hard to read the number.
Understood.
Yeah.
The other one is a little bit high is to the left of larceny is the theft. That's from motor vehicles. It actually reflects theft of vehicles, vehicle parts or accessories.
Oh yeah, and I heard there's a issue with Cadillac converters.
Yeah.
That's like statewide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nationwide.
That's nationwide.
Norfolk is trying to get legislation to put a bounty on the Cadillac converter.
And basically they're stolen for the contents of the catalytic converters.
I don't know. I don't work on a Cadillac. glad you did correct me. Catalytic.
Well, the return on the theft is actually very low, but to replace it is very expensive.
Yeah.
The bottom graph is going to show property crimes from May 2020 to September 30, 2020. So last year's. The big uptick there is in the motor vehicle theft. I believe that reflects the golf cart issue that we faced during that time.
So mine's in there.
Yes, yours is
I had
one.
my golf cart stolen.
Yeah, yours is one of those.
Yeah, it was returned.
Yeah.
So
So.
walk down the road. Yeah, I walked to it. It's a true story. I can't make that up.
No, that's, yeah.
It is a true story.
Okay. Thanks. So this is actually, what we're here for, obviously, is this quarter's statistics, and that's what this reflects. The kind of the big ticket items there is burglary and B&Es, breaking and enterings. That is actually up from 1 to 4. That's the one on the far left, number 220, if you can see that. The motor vehicle theft is down from 9 to 6. And then again, the destruction of property or damage to property is that's up to 8 reported instances.
This would be through the summer because this is May to September.
Right, May to September.
Thank you.
If I can go to the next one, thank you. This one, there's just a few of these because you can go through and see where the changes are. So obviously it lists the previous years during the same date range, the current date range and the differences and then the percentages. There was a number 120 reflects the reporting or robberies reported. In 2020, there was 0 reported. There's currently 1 reported during this period. And so it reflects 100% increase. And that's what I was explaining. It's 100% increase. Really, it's up 1. The burglary and the B&Es, we went up in that category as well from 1 to 4. So it's a 300% increase. So I know the percentages look large, but really the volume is not. It's not.
So this chart is also analyzing May through September of last year, and May through September of this year, because this is a quarterly report.
Right. Yeah, this is just for this year.
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just for this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, compared to last year.
Compared to last year.
Right, but not going back further.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's just- yeah, just-
So it only goes to 20.
But the same quarter in both columns.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
I assumed that from the title. I just want.
Gotcha. All of their larcenies, which again is any kind of theft, that the previous year we had 3 reported. We currently have 1 reported, so it's -2 and a decrease, percentage decrease of 66.67%. And then finally, in the destruction or damage or vandalism, we went down from 11 reported crimes during that same period in 2020, and we're down to 8, which is a percentage difference of minus 27.27%. Thank you. Again, this looks kind of like large, like it looks like there's a lot, but this is violent crime, and this is during this reporting period. The reported rapes went to 1, robbery 1, and aggravated assault 2. If you note that any of the murder or manslaughter type charges, there was 0 reported during this quarterly report or quarterly period. Go to the next one, please. Thank you. What this shows is violent crimes for this reporting period. So from May 2021 again to September 30, 2021. And I'm going to talk about some previous years as well. At the far left of the chart, it talks about murder and manslaughter. In 2020, there was 1 reported murder. And in 2019, there was 1 manslaughter. For the rapes in both 2019 and 2020, there was 0 reported. We've had 1 reported during this period. Through aggravated assault, which is item 13A. In 2019, we had 5 reported incidents. In 2020, we had 4. and we're down to 2, so we're down 2 from 2020. Simple assaults, in 2019, there was 14. In 2020, there was 24. We are currently, during this quarter, we're at 12. So we're down 12 from 2020. And then the item 13C is intimidation. To define that really is basically brandishing a weapon, displaying a weapon. In 2019, there was 0. 2020, there was 1, and we have 1 now, so we're even on that one. This just shows the comparisons again with the previous year, so 2020, and then our current year of 2021, and the differences, and it also reflects the percentage differences. The bottom graph is from January, so this is a bigger reporting period. So that's from January of 2021 through October of 2021, and again, it reflects the movement, percentage-wide movement in murders, rapes, robberies, and aggravated assaults. And I believe that concludes the report. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you guys. Now I stick around because we're we'll be here. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Council may have some questions for you from. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. I'm curious, while any crime is catastrophic for the victim,
Yes, ma'am.
it seems as though we have relatively low numbers. Are there any data that you can compare to towns of similar size?
We can attempt to do that. I know that where we obtain the information for this would be off our personal RMS system. If we could request information from others, I don't know if we can access it.
There are other jurisdictions, other agencies that actually use the same reporting system that we do. Some agencies are small, some agencies are larger agencies. We can compare our numbers with those agencies that also use this reporting system. We can pull that from our system.
I was gonna say the Chiefs Association is here. They may have a concept of.
No, we don't, and we don't need to have permission for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And just also to add, because I know sometimes there's hubbub about crime and all of that. A lot of times we do get calls for service that will come out as one type of incident, and then it turns out to be a different type of incident. So we'll get a call for a rape that turns into a sodomy, for an example. So that if you hear a lot of that around town about that there's this and this and this, that may be where the differences come in, is that it can always change once we get there. So I just wanted to clarify that. Any other questions?
Any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That we are, next up is Bruce Chief Hub. I'm trying to find my paper. I'm going to present Mr. Huff with the plaque and presented to Bruce Huff, our retiring police chief. He served honestly, faithfully, and never swerving from the path of duty. Best wishes in your retirement and next steps. Okay. It's an honor and a pleasure working with you I know I give you a hard time sometimes.
No,
No,
no.
I do. It's okay. I do it to everybody that's equal across the board. And it's out of love for the community and for our department. You are a steady hand through everything, and I just think that your time here is it's hopefully grown you as much as it's grown the town in some ways. And through whether it be a fight fest or an Easter egg hunt or a road golf cart in the water, who knows? We just appreciate that you come running for us. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to read the resolution and then ask for the motion. Resolution 5021 accepts the resignation of Bruce Huff as the police chief for the town of Colonial Beach, whereas Bruce Huff has selflessly and honorably served in law enforcement for many years at both the federal and local levels, and whereas Bruce Huff has served and protected the town of Colonial Beach and its citizens since December 31st, 2012, and whereas the town council of the town of Colonial Beach is grateful for the dedicated service of during his tenure, whereas Bruce has submitted his resignation to be effective on November 5th, 2021, after which time Bruce will enjoy retirement and time with his family. And whereas the town of Colonial Beach wishes Bruce Huff the very best in his retirement. Now therefore be it resolved by the Colonial Beach Town Council at the regular meeting on Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021, that the resignation of Bruce Huff is accepted effective the 5th. Do I have a motion? A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. And I know you're still with us for the transition here to the next steps
Yes, ma'am.
as well. Next, I'd like to introduce Dana Shard of the Chiefs of Police Association, because she is going to walk us into the next resolution, which is the appointment of our interim.
Good evening, Dana Schraub, Executive Director for the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police, and Sarah sent me a picture, so I can put it on our Facebook page, honoring the chief. So thank you very much for your service, Chief. I wanted to let you know, we have posted the job description on our website and working with India to make sure it gets out, on kind of the appropriate different venues, whether it's VML's job list or in your local paper, things like that. I already received one application and got a couple of inquiries from folks. So I expect we will get several applications. We kind of kept it open until filled, but we're hoping that we'll get within about 30 to 45 days a good group of applicants, and we can kind of say, okay, we think we have a good group to look at and go from there. And we'll, obviously when we're meeting regularly with the council members, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the public to hear what kind of attributes they are looking for in a police chief as well, because one of the things that's most important to us is while we look at qualifications and we look at skill sets and we look at training and all that, we also look at what's a good fit for a community. So knowing what people want out of their police department and their police chief is a really important part of our process. In that vein, I'm here tonight to introduce your interim chief. When we look and when we advise localities on interim chiefs, first of all, you try to find someone in the immediate area, so you have someone who's maybe familiar at least with the area, but also someone who's more recently retired from law enforcement, because that means their skills have not gone stale. They're up on recent changes in the law, and someone who has a real passion for serving as an interim. And the folks who serve as interim chiefs for us, we always obviously choose someone who has already served as a chief someplace and they have that skill set. They're usually very and in this case, no exception, they're usually very passionate about wanting to serve as an interim chief. They don't want the job full-time, but they want to come in and serve and help a community transition into the next phase of leading their police department. And in that vein, an interim chief can provide a certain amount of guidance to the department, maybe bring in sort of fresh eyes to look at some things that can be done and help sort of set the table for the new chief coming in to make this transition very smooth. And so that's in that vein, when we were looking at who was immediately available and who would be a good match here to work with the department, Chief Kenny Miller came immediately to mind. Chief Miller has 40 years of experience in law enforcement. And that's what that means is he stayed long past when he could have retired because he's that dedicated to the profession. He started his career with the Virginia Beach Police Department, where he worked through the ranks, 33 years in various capacities, became a very accomplished investigator and served that agency well for 33 years. He spent the next 3 years as chief of the Petersburg Police Department, where he worked from day one to groom his successor. He knew he wasn't going to be there a long time. He knew he wanted to try to bring the department into sort of a stable place and help identify really who the next good chief would be, and wanted to try to promote somebody from within. And so now Chief Travis Christian is in charge of the Petersburg Police Department. And when I mentioned to our executive board, because Chief Christian's on our executive board, that we were looking for someone for Colonial Beach, he immediately said, "Have you talked to Kenny Miller?" Because when Chief Miller was at Petersburg, he looked so hard at the troops, at the officers, to try to groom their skill sets and identify someone within the ranks who could really improve in the professional ranks and be a leader within the agency. And so he was the one that first suggested I call Kenny, and I kind of said, well, why didn't I think of that immediately? So anyway, he is now, obviously, Chief Christian's now a very good leader in the Petersburg Police Department. During his tenure at Petersburg, Chief Miller brought the agency to its first time accredited status. I know that's something that our agencies really aspire to. I talked about it last time, that accreditation used to be one of those ceilings that we tried to achieve in law enforcement. Now it's the floor. Because so much is expected in terms of professionalism and reducing liabilities for agencies, that we really recommend accreditation for any agency that can hope to achieve it. And we're hopeful that that can be done here as well. After retiring as a Petersburg Police Chief, he served then as the interim city manager for a few months. And he also serves as an adjunct professor at Virginia State University, and he works as a professional police consultant. We also have another advantage in that he has worked before with your town manager. So there's having that, previous relationship and everything means that that's a little bit of a smooth transition as well for him coming in to the town. So did I do you justice, Kenny? Come on up here and say a few words to the council.
It was sort of serendipitous though, because the suggestion came from you and we did not even know that they had worked together.
I know.
So.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm Kenny Miller, and I'll tell you something. I'm excited to come in and humbled by the man that she talked about. That's really not me. I'm just a regular guy, a little poor kid from Patterson, New Jersey, and God is blessed. And I've got some opportunities. My biggest thing is that I'm a public servant. I've always been. Some people aspire for money. Some folks aspire to do big things. I'm just a guy who likes to work for the people. So 1 second, nothing. You're all my bosses for the next 9 days or something, 9 years. So I work for you. And also the phone number is 757-646-4145. That's my cell phone number. So if you need to call me or something, call me. And everybody in Petersburg has a number, so you should have it as well. I think that's important because I am a public servant and I do work for you. My mission here is simple, and it's to help you find the best police chief you can find for your town. Mrs. Jacobs is a proven leader. I have the utmost respect for her, and so when I was asked to come here, was here or Charlottesville. I'm going to come here because we have a relationship and I have an opportunity to help out. But I will be here. I'm very critical with respect to my reports. I do a lot of liability work for for cities, hopefully keeping cities out of trouble. My company does that. We'll be here. I'm available. I'm trying to find a location to rest my head over for the next 90 days or whatever I'm here. But I'm here to work for you. And so call me and got my number. Don't be afraid to call me. I'll answer any questions that you have. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, but other than that, I'm here to work with you. And thank you so much, and God bless you all. Unless you have any questions.
Any questions? No, not at this time. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, well, let's make it official. Resolution 5121, appointment of the interim chief of police to Mr. Kenneth Miller. Do I have a motion? Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't do that roll call vote because you wanted to speed it up, I feel like. So I do the consensus vote. I feel like sometimes I get bashed for that though, like we're all just saying yes to everything. But that was a procedural thing that Tom came up with. Anyway, clarify. Welcome to Colonial Beach, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, ma'am.
Excited. Okay, citizen input for our chief of police selection process. Ms. Shar, do you want to come up and kind of walk through how that process is gonna take place? I know you said 30 to 45 days of thinking about applications, but just let's get a concept of that.
Okay, I think I mentioned last time, we kind of customize our process to each locality. I think in this case, we've worked with Colonial Beach before. Saying that, I also know the communities change over time, so we want to really get some fresh input. I have a survey instrument that I'm going to send to the council tomorrow that I've kind of been, I keep changing it up, which is why I didn't get it to you on Friday, but I've got that finalized now. I'll send it to you tomorrow to get your input. It'll be great to get input from, townspeople tonight. And if they file any other comments, written comments, with the town that could be forwarded to me, that would be helpful. So what we'll do is now, as we've got this open period of accepting applications, we'll go through those again and vet all the applications against the qualifications that the town is looking for. One of the things I try to prioritize, because it saves both time and money for the town, is when you look at the applications, depending on how far reaching, the announcement gets, you try to prioritize those that come from the Commonwealth of Virginia for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's less cost in getting them to come here and interview for a position, and also relocation, all that. They're already currently certified as a law enforcement officer in Virginia, and they know the state and they know the state's law. So you don't have that lag time if you look at an out-of-state candidate who may have to come here and actually go through some academy to get certified in Virginia. And so we, try to minimize that by showing at least some preference for the Virginia candidates. Now it always does happen. Every once in a while, you'll get a stellar candidate from out of state who just looks like a really good match, and you don't want to exclude those folks, but I do try to prioritize those. We look at then also just a number of qualifications on the applications. We're looking for obviously education, training, experience, their public service, a variety of things, and to try to make sure that they have sort of the right set of basic qualifications. We also look at whether or not they've had experience in a similar geographic area. As, for example, you are a beach community that relies a lot on tourism. Do you have a candidate that has that kind of experience and would be able to adapt well here? And you also want to see where someone is in their career path. Every once in a while, you'll see often you'll see candidates who are looking to just serve as a police chief, and they want something to sort of fill out their career. And I try to get a feel for the town, because if the town really likes to hire someone and keep them for a while, then you want to, look at folks who may be looking for that sort of retired on active duty job. And we try to make sure that we really aren't favoring that kind of person. We want someone who's fully committed to the community. Once we go through all that, we do a lot of background, even before we get to the interview process, because the scrutiny now on law enforcement officers and especially on chiefs is very high. The General Assembly last year changed the background search requirements in the code. There's a lot stricter hiring requirements, and so I try to do that earlier in the process to make sure that we've vetted down to a small group of people to be interviewed, that we don't have to worry about them washing out later, that they have a disqualifier somewhere in their record. So we look for those early on to make sure that we vet those folks out. We get down to, and I try to keep it to 5, at the most 6 finalists to be interviewed live. But we do a lot of phone interviews or nowadays video conference interviews ahead of time with those candidates, check their references, check secondary references, the ones they don't list on their resumes, and try to make sure we narrow down to a field of folks that meet the kind of qualifications, but also the characteristics that you all will list in your survey responses and what we hear from the townspeople here. The vetting, we go through that vetting process. There's a couple of other exercises we can do, and we'll negotiate that out with the town council depending on how much vetting you want to do of the final candidates. We often will do a writing exercise to see what level of communication skills they have. We sometimes will do a second committee of invested stakeholders in the community to also interview. But the one thing we always do is a peer interview panel. And that's a panel of police chiefs and that interviews the candidates. And they always tell us that's the toughest interview because they really know that they can't fool their peers. And peer police chiefs can really see whether or not someone has good qualifications, to meet that. After we get down to a process where we say, you know what, there's really a top candidate, or there's maybe a top couple of candidates, we come back to the council and then we'll figure out how you all want to do that, whether you want to do additional live interviews with them, or have them interview with your town manager, however you want to do that to narrow it down to your final candidate. I've only had one situation where the first run through of candidates failed to produce a chief. And that process ended up taking a year, which was, unfortunate, but we were trying to do due diligence. And so we ended up getting a very good police chief for that community. So that's, we really will adapt if you all see a need for input at a level that we haven't identified, we'll work with you to do that. And we already have several chiefs that have volunteered to serve on the interview panel because they have a great interest in giving back. They were chiefs that were hired through our process and they want to be able to give back and help Colonial Beach as well. So that's kind of a rough overview, but I can send you my kind of guidance document that you can take a look at. But I want to see if you have any other questions.
No, not this time. I'm going to open it up for any citizen input. I'm sure we'll be sharing the survey with our existing council, but with the new members for their input, because they're going to be the ones in the end also going through this process. And, I don't have anybody signed up, Mr. Survey.
First of all, I'd like to commend you all on this process that we're doing. That the council's put in the agenda here, actually had Ms. Shard come up and has invited public comment. I wish we'd have done that in the last several chief of police elections that we had previously. You mentioned a couple points. Did I get your name right, Shard?
That's Shrod.
Shrod, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That interim chief, the fact, a retired chief, second career, somebody looking to just kind of swan song it out, that makes a great interim chief. I think that we as a town have found in the last 15 years that does not make a good permanent chief for us. We've had one chief that stands out, I believe, in probably everybody's mind in the last 15 years, who was actually promoted from within and had the fire and the drive to take on our police department, and has since moved on to the sheriff's department and has grown in his career and in his person and in his role tremendously at the county sheriff's department. I remember the days, I'm sure some of you do, when Mr. Allison, you probably do, with Chief Anderson, who still lives in the town of Colonial Beach up on 205. back in the sixties. I don't know how long he was our chief, but it seemed like forever and ever and ever. You know, I think that we need to, you know, again, look for people that are not looking for, you know, a second retirement or to be a part of a retirement town so they can enjoy the town. We want somebody who does the job, brings our police department up, gets it reaccredited. You know, not a retired person. And the other biggest thing I think we need is someone who's visible to the public, not just somebody who's visible at a town council meeting, but is actually visible to the public and interactive with the county, with the town and its people, and with Westmoreland County. We need to improve our relationships with the sheriff's department. They think we're a joke, and that's not a good thing. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I hope you take my comments under consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else? I really didn't have anybody signed up, which I was a little disappointed about because I kind of thought this was an amazing way to run it. Also have that opportunity. The job description is pretty robust, so if you do read it online, it does have some points. Okay. With that, we'll be moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Miller, and thank you, Bruce, for everything. Appreciate it. Don't be a stranger to town, okay? You gonna come for Bike Fest on your bike?
Probably not, but
Do it.
it'd be good to come on that capacity.
Yes. All right. Next up is resolution 5221, authorization of the town manager to execute the contract for central drainage engineering services. Mr. Murphy, would you like the reason for this one? Oh, and thank you, Dana, for coming. We'll be in touch.
As we know,
What?
did you ask for comment?
Oh, for the execution of the contract, just to, just say what it is before we.
This is for the selection of engineering services that's necessary for the final design construction.
Is your mic on?
Yeah, we'll pull it a little closer. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is for the selection of the engineering services that's necessary for the final design and construction administration of the central drainage area sewer replacement, which is, of course, critical to eliminating the sanitary sewer overflows that have been experienced in the Colonial Avenue area. On September 14th, we issued a request for proposal for said engineering services to prepare the construction documents sewer replacement. The scope of the design of the RFP also includes completing CCTV inspection of the sewer to determine the quality, quantity, and location for reconnection of existing sanitary sewer laterals to the system, and for optional on-site inspection services during construction. As you know, it's related. This is all in relation to the significant I&I inflow and infiltration that's been experienced in the central area, drainage area, and showing itself at the manhole at the end of Colonial Avenue, as mentioned. And to address the immediate issue of these, the town wishes to award a contract for the design, bidding, and construction phase services. And it will include replacement of approximately 2,500 linear feet of existing sanitary sewer, and the rehab and replacement or replacement of 10 manholes. I see no viable alternatives that, other than contributing to the current environmental impact that's relating to these manhole overflows. Not to mention potential fines as imposed by the regulatory agencies.
Yes.
Fiscal impact. $205,000 professional services, including survey, CCTV inspection, design, construction project management, and construction inspection services. If we can anticipate the construction estimate's going to be something itself. This is a construction estimate of 1.5 million. They're in that neighborhood, 1 to 1.5 million. We will see more after we have the final design. That is construction. Recommendation is to request it hereby submitted to you to authorize the town manager to award a contract for RFP INI PE CDA SWRINT FY 22-01 for the central drainage area sewer replacement engineering services to the highest rated submitter, which was Dewberry.
Grab a motion
So moved.
or a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Can't wait to fix that issue. It's still gonna be like a year and a half or something.
Yeah, we're figuring 6 months construction duration right now.
We're not gonna do it
Not to
in the middle of
begin
summer.
until probably October, November-ish of next year.
Okay. Public Works Projects update, Mr. Murphy. Keep it going.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In the last quarter, Public Works has been going through a lot of different areas, and some of the projects that have been addressed, seen by some and some not. Robin Grove Living Shoreline Revitalization Project. Now that was in our CIP, been coming for a long time. Public Works provided support prior to and during construction. In preparing for the construction, the contractors is 90% complete. I'm saying they substantially complete. VIMS is reviewing the as-built survey results to address any elevation, verifiable elevations in relation to this.
Okay.
Castlewood bathroom was a CIP remodel. Was done by contract and monitored and coordinated by Public Works. That is complete. There was a library replacement, window replacement that was at the in front of the library. Took some time to get materials in. It was a contractor. We coordinated with the contractor to get that done. We found that the end of COVID delays in relation to materials at that site, but it's finally complete. I&I wise, there's of course the research and information gathering for Dewberry to include identifying town-wide wastewater pipe sizes. This is in relation to their overall I&I study. Public Works also identified flow directions to all have on the mapping systems for all of the project areas around town. And had to pull pump station run times, pump station flow testing, et cetera. And all that portion is completed and has been submitted to Dewberry. We also found located, this isn't necessarily a CIP item, but it's certainly a project that we ran across. It was a significant water leak at the wastewater treatment facility, coming underground, traveling many long distances. Took approximately 4 months to finally track it down. Not every day, but here and there, as we could pull away from other jobs, and identified it under the line side. Finally got that repaired. It was rather significant. Clean a few of the tanks at the WWTP. That was a 2-week effort. It required both Public Works, and a significant portion of the Public Works staff, not to mention the WWTP staff. That's complete.
Did any other council members go to the tanks during the cleaning? I Kenny did. Yeah, but after,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, what an undertaking.
Mhm.
Do you understand what that is? Cleaning a wastewater treatment tank? You get in a manhole. Okay.
That's correct. You get in a manhole.
It's incredible.
And you gotta get asked to go back out that manhole.
They're big too. Okay. They're very big. The tanks.
That many gallons.
Yeah. Anyway, it was an impressive effort. And I wanted to see it, we'll continue to clean. I mean, those are the 2 tanks that do that have that sediment growth or whatever. So that's why they were the 2 tanks.
Yeah. 30.
Okay, keep going. Sorry, I know we have a lot on the agenda.
Work also has commenced on preparing the water tower. We spent significant time at the Public Works water tower and making sure that we were going to be able to isolate said tower. Because in preparation for painting, the painters are there now. We were able to get it isolated. Had some difficulties with some underground valves, but that is taken care of. They are proceeding, have finished the inside, and working on the final painting of the outside. That inside, of course, is all sandblasted. And then the outside also. We anticipate that'll be done in the next 30 days. They also completed 2 of the 4 planned pump station upgrades. And that's upgrading to what's called radio telemetry, which operates your pumping systems. We've been moving towards that for some time. There are 2 more to do, so that's 50% complete. We've also upgraded the failed lights in town here. That was a safety issue. That was a contractor that had to do replace some of the wiring, some of the panel controls. Unfortunately, it got washed away last week.
You don't have to remind me, okay? I knew when the item came up.
But this was written before that.
I was so happy about those lights too.
We also had to repair our MyNet meter reading system, which is an automated system where we can read water meters. It suffered a lightning strike, especially an antenna at the top of the water tower. Had to coordinate between Ferguson and also our tower maintenance group and Public Works in order to address the replacement of that on top of the tower. Also, we developed the FY22 first round pavement repair list and submitted to contracted services. It's scheduled in mid-October. Of course, this is the last quarter report, and that has been completed. Last week, they finished up. Another big one is that we implemented CityWorks GI-based asset management software with continued training and development of PW staff, because this is a moving target. The base system is installed completely, but system enhancements and staff development that relate to the operations of the system is ongoing. Currently, there have been 416 work orders placed in the system, 240 which have been closed. 176 are completed, waiting review prior to closure, and there are 64 currently open work orders.
That's the map.
That's it.
It's the first time I've ever seen that. Look, a map of the Public Works work orders.
Yeah, that is actually it. And I believe that was before this total quantity, there aren't quite as many on there, 416, but that's what it's gonna look like and what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. There aren't any at my house, I just wanted to know
No.
that. Okay. Any questions for Public Works? No? Ms. Oates, you are next on the list.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I am presenting tonight the first quarter financial reports for fiscal year 22, which encompasses July 1st to September 30th. We're going to start out with the general fund. And the next chart, it shows you your monthly inflows and outflows. And there are a couple items that I wanted to point out on there regarding our outflows in the July. That was due to a large amount of debt service that's paid in July. And then again in your September, the inflows, the revenue that we got included our first quarter streets allocation that we get, which was almost $2 million. And again, within our police, which is 22,000. So you see the little bit of an increase there is because of those items that we got. The other one I wanted to point out was in August, the increase there is attributable to the PPTRA tax relief that we received. That was received in August. Go to the next slide. Then I broke out the revenue by different categories. I just wanted to, the other tax revenue includes sales tax or electricity tax, cigarette tax, business licenses, communication tax, and our decals. Just want to let you aware of what was in that item. And other includes things like interest from their banks, yard sale, renting of our town property, trash pickup that we do, and special events. It also includes transfers we made of $287,000 to purchase a trash truck and police vehicles. Our expenditures is broken out by departments. The only thing I wanted to point out there is other expenses is our computer processing department and our litter control. Litter control is, we get a grant every year for it. It's a small amount of money. The computer processing that keeps us running with all our technology. That includes replacement computers, all our software, our licensing. So that's that was that expense is. And we move on to our sewer department. Okay, again, monthly inflows and outflows. Just wanted to point out a few items there. The expenses in July, August, and September, roughly half of that. In July, we had $55,000 in debt service. Of that $135,000. August, it was another $60,000. Of that 163 is attributable to debt. September is just basically operating. There's just very little debt service of 1,770. The revenue, I made a note there on the revenue. In your water and sewer funds, revenue is recorded when it's billed. So this, you see the billing for October 1st, which is sent out at the beginning of September. So that is that first quarter billing. To the next slide. And then our breakdown. Just want to point out other revenue is the money that we get from the Westmoreland County. It's a percentage of their capital improvements from the previous year and their plant upgrades that they pay every month. And expenditures are pretty much just straightforward. Our sewer, our wastewater treatment, and our debt service. Going to the water fund.
Again, this charge kind of looks similar to your sewer fund. The expenses in July and August are mostly related to your debt service. We had $102,000 in debt service in July and $142,000 in August. And again, the revenue is recorded the same way as sewer. It's recorded when it's billed, and that's our billing for our October, our first quarter. And revenue breakdown is pretty straight, just water, penalty, interest, reconnection fees, and water connections. And again, with our expenditures are pretty straightforward. It's just our water department and our debt service. In summary, our first quarter revenue and expenditures are consistent with previous year. And we really had no significant variances that I'm reporting. Next, I want to give you the breakdown of our disbursements for July through September. This is for all funds, our accounts payable. We paid invoices from July 1st to September 30th, totaling $1,907,740.88. And in our payroll checks from July 1st to September 30th were $484,811.26. The associated payroll tax cost, it was $175,745.16. That concludes my presentation, and I will, if you have any questions?
Riveting. I think I got somebody with a smile out there. Okay. No, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yes, I'm sure, I mean. Yeah. All right, special events. Bob, are you gonna spice it up now?
We've got one more update before we get to.
Oh, sorry, did I get?
Adam has just a short presentation on park revenue that's separate.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't have that somehow on. That's fine. You can do it as part of the finance. Yeah. I thought it was.
This is just simple, our parking revenue update. Basically what I did was I did a comparison of our new system to our old system. Our old system was Parkion. And basically you only could pay and display. Customers actually had to go to the meter to get to pay for the parking. And there was a very hazy black and white display.
Very easy.
It was very easy. And the reporting for my office was very there was a lot lacking. I could only run totals, wouldn't give me breakdowns for lots. So that was one of the reasons that we wanted to go to a new parking system. We did get a new system, which is Flowbird, and people can pay by plate. They can get an app and put it on their phone, kind of moving into the 21st century. They actually have an option to buy a parking pass for the year. I don't know how popular that is. It's pretty expensive, but the option is there. The display is much better. It's color. So people have said that it's easier to read and see what you're pushing.
Although the app's even easier than the display. The app is so easy.
The app is very easy. I agree. I wish everyone would use the app.
Yeah.
No cash, just the app.
Yeah.
Their system reporting is far better. I can run reports that will give me how many cars parked in a particular lot for a time period, what kind of payments there were, whether they were cash, card, or app. Slide. Also with this system, we have a new parking ticket system, which basically means the old way, the officers would actually have to go physically inspect the vehicle to see if there was an actual ticket, see if they paid for it. And people would sometimes put them in different places, which made it much harder for police officers to see whether it was a paid spot or not. The violations were actually still handwritten on
parchment paper, which means, we would get a copy, the police department would get a copy of it, and by the time it got to them, it was very faded and left a lot to be desired. And what would happen is, so someone would get a ticket, the copy would go to the police department. The admin person would put that ticket into the system, and then the person who got the ticket would have to come into the office to make a payment. The new system, officers don't even have to get out of their car. All you gotta do is scan the license plate,
Well, they have to get on their car to give them the ticket.
but they can sit in their car to see if the car.
Oh,
is
before
valid.
they even write it.
Yeah. Violations are actually printed on a machine that the officers carry with them, so no more handwriting. You can actually take a picture of the vehicle that actually shows where the vehicle was not parked correctly. And they can actually go online and make a payment, which is far better than coming into the office.
I've been watching Parking Wars. I have been. Parking officers are very proud of the work that they're doing out there.
Yes, they are. And our officers are in the same boat with them.
And it's not easy. Anyway, I got into that because of that.
The money is actually deposited directly into our account. So when someone makes a payment online, the accounting for it is far easier. We just get reports from that system showing how many people paid. And then we just do a simple journal entry to process that money into our accounting system. For FY19, we brought in $134,649.85 in parking revenue. In 20, we brought in $193,281. And in 21, we brought in $278,247.20. As somebody was here when we used to have coin meters, this is a huge increase. The next chart just simply shows you kind of the month breakdown of when we actually bring in our money. Obviously, the summer months are the heaviest months to bring in most of our revenue. And we still actually do have people pay over the winter months. They don't have to, but they do. We don't discourage them from paying. I'll take anybody's money. We did have a slight decline in April and May of 20 due to COVID. That picked up pretty quickly. Just in my opinion, seemed to be a destination for people to come during COVID because it was not much for kids to do except be on the beach. I know I did. I took place took part in being a beach ambassador. And that was one of the things that I heard many parents say was that they loved coming here because there was nothing for their kids to do except go on the beach.
You can really tell, look, in April it's flat,
Yeah.
and in May it's not a thing, and in June it just skyrocketed. Get outside, get them outside, out of my house.
Yes.
That's what I said personally.
We collect 53% of our yearly income through July through September. 4% is collected October to March, and the remaining 43% is collected from April to June. From July of 21, we collected $178,206.30 in parking revenue.
So that's this fiscal year so far.
Yes.
Okay.
Presuming the Wilder lot is still in use, April through June of 2022, our parking revenue may exceed our budgeted amount for the fiscal year by 70% or approximately $140,000. So we're on good track to beat our projected revenue. If things go the way they are now. That's all I have. Any questions?
Can you, maybe Heather, I don't have a question at this moment. I want to get through the special events and the traffic study, but when we come back to that municipal parking discussion, just keep those, because I have a couple of slides I might want to go back to.
Okay. Well, I'm,
Yeah, sure.
So for future efforts, I believe the town council should have access by reporting that the special events, so we can identify for future events, like Fest for One, to make sure that, if we are collecting the amount of money that we need to collect for those time periods, to see if it's viable to see if special events can be altered in certain areas. So
absolutely. I can pull reporting. I can run reports by not only date, but by lot.
and sorry, and that'll help Mr. Duke and his events that'll be coming up next, so he can identify different areas to see where we may be able to adjust our events in certain ways. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes. Dr. Sosa?
So, Adam,
Yes, ma'am.
could you, if I look, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the numbers right. Only 4% of our parking income comes in October, November, December, January, February, March.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for this guy? How was traffic?
Usual.
Yeah.
Always.
Sorry, I'm glad you're here. Okay, or special events. I keep trying to skip forward on this. Mr. Duke. You wear a bow tie? You did.
I did, and I made several comments. It doesn't fall into food like normal ties do. So, thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of council for letting me speak to you for a few moments. As I'm sure many of you know, I started doing or acting as a special events coordinator back in June-ish, and I'm still learning a lot. Met a lot of nice folks throughout this process too, because within the NGO community, obviously civic organizations, they do a great deal of wonderful things. Indy and I had some conversations about where we are and where we can improve and where we go from here. And to be honest, from what I've experienced, we have a pretty good process. It can go pretty smoothly. There are certainly ways to improve, as Mr. Allison just mentioned a few moments ago. Mainly, my first impressions was the amount of hard work that goes into these special event processes, particularly the organizers themselves. We should always thank these organizations for their dedication to bring fun events to our town. Having said that, I was also surprised at the amount of staff time and planning from the town's departments. All the departments have a say in the events process for the most part, but the police department and public works specifically need to be thanked on a daily basis from you folks in the public, because I don't think people realize the hard work that they put into making these events happen. So we need to praise them as often as we can. This presentation is mostly for informational purposes. I do offer a few recommendations at the end, so I'll certainly try and keep it short for you. Next slide, please. The process is pretty simple. NGOs, civic organizations, and private individuals or groups can apply for a permit. They usually will come in and speak to myself and fill out the application. Events can be held anywhere in town-owned property, to include Reno Hill, Town Hill for newer folks, I guess. Our beaches or any park. Events are classified by a projected attendance, and each classification has differing costs and application due dates based on that projected attendance. An application must first meet all the requirements currently in the process, such as a deposit bond at the time of the application with a daily fee due weeks, days, months before the event. Excuse me. Some of the requirements to have the permit signed off on would include food and alcoholic beverage licensing, site and parking plans, and more recently, COVID mitigation efforts. Next slide. Again, pretty simple. The application has deadlines that we at the Parks and Rec Department, which is myself. And I give generally the first approval based on, again, if they have their application fee and all the paperwork due. And then we have various internal staff meetings with our special events planning committee, made up of myself, chief, town manager, zoning director, public works director. And then as we get closer to the special event date, we all sign off on it to make sure that public works, for example, knows when the event is. The chief may know to block off a road or provide assistance. So next slide, please. Again, I went over the process. It's kind of a bit repetitious, but that explains it. Again, a lot of work goes into the special events process internally with the town government and department heads. So next slide, please. And again, ABC board, for example, if you want to have a special event that includes alcohol, the ABC approval has to happen. If you want to shut down Colonial Avenue for a parade, for example, VDOT has to approve of that along with the chief. And then street closures is one that's popped up recently. That's probably going to be updated in our special events application to include more language about street closures. Next slide, please. Communications, again, a lot that goes into it. I generally hold meetings if I can with the event holder. Some of the events are pretty small, so you can knock it out pretty quickly. Some you do it by phone or email. I know for some of the bigger events like preparation for fireworks, for example, or the Bike Fest, I know the chief attended a lot of meetings. I know that India and I had attended a lot of meetings. So there's a lot of man hours, if you will, that go into these special events, including site visits. I forgot to mention that. I will often go out and meet with somebody to just take a view of what they want to do and where they want to have the event. Next slide. Historical data from 2019 to current. We've had, let's see, 98 special events. 60 of those were put on by our local civic, NGO, tax exempt organizations. 38 were private. 2020 was a COVID year, obviously, but everybody was still applying for a special event permit in hopes that COVID would go away. So some of those events were still held. Obviously, if they weren't held, they were given refunds. So I think as we move along, and you'll see this later in some of the recommendations that I make, it'd be nice if we could have more private individuals and groups hold special events, make this a destination for various types of events, because 501c3s, for example, get a 50% discount. Adam was just talking about revenue. It'd be nice to get more private organizations and individuals have special events and get the full price for the daily fees, for example. So next slide, please. Benchmarking research. We did a deep dive into special events processes throughout the Commonwealth, the region, even over into some of the folks in Southern Maryland, for example. We tried to keep the comps to the town of Irvington or West Point or our neighbors in King George, for example, but we did look at other beach towns and cities that were obviously a lot bigger than we are. What I've found is that everybody does things a little bit differently than we do. But some of the localities I found they have the exact same process. As a matter of fact, I won't say who it is, but it looks like someone stole our application, or we stole theirs at some point.
Which one is it?
I don't recall. I will get that to you at some point. But it's across the Rappahannock. So in the middle of the peninsula.
They stole ours.
Okay. Well, that's what they say about flat earth. These, and we'll go to the next slide real quick, just so I can show you, next one, I'm sorry. here's some of the localities we looked at. We got Charles City County, Charles County, Maryland, Virginia Beach, et cetera. You can read that, or there we go. You'll notice like the town of Irvington, for example, they don't have a special events permit process or fee. Oops, can we go back? I'm sorry. Indian Head, Maryland, for example, they have facility fees. They don't really have a special event process. They just rent out a park or an open space for folks to use. But you can see there's varying degrees of fees that each locality has. Don't be fooled by some of the numbers that you see of really low application fee or special event fee. Because what I found is that a lot of these localities have like a la carte stuff, mandatory a la carte stuff. So for example, you might pay $100 to rent a park or have a special event, but they mandate that you have to have police coverage. And some of the examples I found where they would charge $450 an hour, 4-hour minimum for police coverage. And some of those mandate even further, like you have to have 4 or 5 officers at an event. So yeah, it looks like we charge more than some localities, but that's not the case. So again, varying degrees of charges, and we're kind of in line. If you think about how we charge for folks, it's kind of in line with everybody else, with the exception of like Virginia Beach that require extensive police coverage, for example, and public works coverage where you block off a city block. Those can get really, really expensive. We don't offer that, not yet at least. So next slide. Revenue. We generally see about $5,000 a fiscal year in special event fees. Obviously, these folks pay a bond depending on the size of the event. That's refundable after the 30 days after the event, generally, if they've done their due diligence and actually cleaned up after themselves. For example, nobody I've experienced has had their bond held back for any reason. So it's hard to quantify revenue that comes into the town because of a special event. Let's just kind of get that out of the way, other than parking, as Adam addressed. And I think I'll go into, these are the parking numbers here we go. Parking revenue for, I picked 4 random weekends. I'm not going to say what the events were. You can figure that one out for yourself. So we don't know exactly how much revenue the town gets due to a special event. And Lisa can correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, meals, lodging, sales tax comes in on a monthly basis. So you can tell in the month of June, obviously, and Adam just alluded to it with parking, we're going to make more money, but we can't actually pinpoint the amount of revenue generated by a special event. So we have to look at it at a more broad scale of month to month. So again, you see a lot of cars for a special event, you automatically assume that revenue is going up to not only to the town, but more importantly to the business community. We just can't quantify that at the moment. And again, the best current gauge we have is the actual fees collected and the parking revenue, for example. Next slide, please. Expenditures. This is a tough one because I mentioned earlier about the amount of staff time that goes into these, and these are just, again, year by year comparisons about overtime expenditures, for example. And I mentioned the PD and public works because those men and women are the ones that are getting the work done before. But it's kind of obvious. You can see the ebb and flow. Big events, for example, there's more overtime billed. So a lot of effort goes into these departments when we have special events. Next slide. A few recommendations. Indy and I had discussed revising the application. It's a great application, and again, someone copied ours, so we can clean it up and put some words in there to make it easier. But we recommend that we include a little bit of language about harder deadlines and the timeliness of submitting payments and bonds. In addition, we can make the application smaller and easier to get through. We're also going to develop a guidebook
that would provide much of the information that's actually listed in the special events application and FAQs, thus making the application itself a little bit smaller and perhaps a little less cumbersome. We're also recommending, and you folks will love this, I found a lot of localities that the town council or the governing body signs off on large events. And we define large events as anything with a projected attendance of over 3,500 people. I think due to the planning, staff time, and expenditures made by departments, that you folks should give approval on those things. I've made a concerted effort not to mention any types of organizations and the events that they have, but we all know, we can all read the tea leaves in the amount of effort that's put forth, for example, by, again, the police department and public works. It's not listed in my expenditures, but in past years, the Virginia State Police has racked up about $100,000 worth of labor hours helping us out for larger special events. And I think this year, India, correct me if I'm wrong, it was about $50,000. So these are all things that we need to think about, or you need to think about as we move forward, these larger events that affect traffic, public safety. I'm not in any way advocating for higher fees, but I do think we need to look at maybe just taking a look at the realistic numbers that sometimes we spend an awful lot of money from the town's point of view to hold special events. Another thing that we would like to recommend is that we come up with the adoption of a process and fee schedule for the use and rental of our town tent. Everybody saw the town tent at the Dodson groundbreaking. Everybody loved it. I got calls days after, well, hours after, and folks wanted to use it for their special events. I didn't have a problem with it. I think it's great. It looks nice. And I think at some point we should be able to make that available for public use. But there's a lot of planning and process that goes into that as well. I think it took Rob 10, 11 folks to get that tent up that day. And then thus probably the same amount of folks taking it down. There's liability issues that we would need to consider. The county has to do an inspection of when it's up and when it's down. So I want the NGOs and any organization, private or otherwise, to be able to use that tent if they want, but there's probably going to have some, again, liability issues addressed and maybe a fee attached because of, again, Public Works is putting it up, they're trained on how to do it, and they have to take it down after the event.
Wear and tear to the actual tent.
I'm sorry?
I mean, wear and tear to the actual
Correct.
property too, or
Yeah.
it goes up and down.
And the last recommendation would be that we work with our promotional and social media folks to emphasize the town being a destination for special events on the private side. I mentioned our NGOs and civic organizations do a great job, but again, they get a 50% discount. Private organizations, for example, don't, they have to pay the full fee. So family reunions, school reunions, competitive sports and athletic events, we're only getting about 40% 40% of our special events are put on by private individuals, organizations. So I think we could probably do a better job of marketing the town as a destination for a wedding or some of those types of events. So yeah, let's see. I think that's the last slide, Madam Clerk. Yep. Any questions I'd be happy to answer. So.
Okay, start with Mike.
Not necessarily a question, Bobby, but just an offer. If you want to sit down at some point in time, need somebody to help work this, how you're going to refine it, revise it, decide how to package it, make it look like what we want to bring to the council to help streamline the process so that all the answers are in the packet before it comes to us. So we see, I think what you're getting at, what are the expenditures? I mean, I talked with Mr. Murphy before. We talked about, building our own a la carte list of what Public Works brings and what it would cost to bring to events based on the size, number of people that are in there, that we then have that good holistic view of what is the cost of the town of doing any kind of special event. I'm happy to work with you guys if you want to.
I appreciate that. And I'm actually glad you gave me a little bit of cover because I thought I was walk out of here with a bad guy. That's just the facts, Councilman Cabry, because we do expend an awful lot of money, and these larger events, they're wonderful. They bring a lot of folks to town, but we also need a lot of public safety folks.
Yep.
Our fire rescue folks, for example, have to be able to get through, roads to be able to assist folks. So I appreciate the offer, and I think we're going to get there. Specific to the guidebook, which my boss, who was brilliant, by the way, came up with that idea. I can't take credit for that. I think that will answer a lot of questions folks have and could offer that a la carte option. Again, a lot of the places that I've researched are doing that. You saw the $100 for an event fee. That looks cheap compared to what we have. But again, if you count those a la carte fees, we're about the same. So.
And as you said, I know that there are always costs associated with these things, and there's probably very few events that we will do, that we'll host here, that will say, bring in money, true money to the town, when we look at the other expenditures we have. But at the end of the day, it's a conscious act of saying, we want to invite people to come here. We don't know what the carry-on effort is from that, when people do come back and what the word goes out. So, yeah, but at least it makes that decision process among the council visible for this is what we're investing in. And I think that's how we have to look at it.
Sure, it is a big investment. And I think if we're net zero, it'd be great. I mean, these events are made for folks to have fun, and the business community to benefit from that. But again, the one thing I did notice was the amount of money and expenditures that go into these special events. A lot of people didn't know some of that. So I appreciate your offer.
I have two questions. I'll ask the big one first. When the state police or the county sheriff incurs overtime, do we pay for that, or do they cover that?
I would ask my boss to maybe clarify that one, because I don't know exactly.
So currently they are, as an organization, eating those costs. And I'll kick it to Bruce to maybe speak a little bit more as he works more collaboratively with the county and on these special events in the past. But in my meeting with Virginia State Police, they said that some of our events are akin to what they spend in terms of time and overtime costs with the state fair, and that they have agreements with the state fair for those services, and in the town we do not. So currently they are eating those costs. I do not know how much longer they will continue to do that, but currently they are.
Anything to add about the county, Chief?
Here. Hey, the county, for example, their overtime is probably 2 to 3 times what ours is. And as you guys know, the county, look, the reality of it is for most events, especially Bike Fest, you couldn't have these events in town without the assistance of the state police and the county, period. I mean, you just couldn't do it. The PD is not equipped. The PD is not staffed, number one, for special events. The sheriff's department or the state police are staffed for special events. I think the conservative $50,000 for this year, for Bike Fest, for example, we cut way back. And because the event, we were cutting people during the event this year, including our people, just to save on the overtime. But Bike Fest alone is a lot of cost. And not only do you have to remember just like, for example, overtime costs, but for state police, for example, you're drawing in troopers from various different divisions to come here. So what does that mean? That means that in their certain division, wherever these people are coming from, they now have a deficit of people. They do this pro bono, okay? They're not charging the town, but the state police are 1/3 understaffed, period, as it is. And they still came this year, even though we cut back. So, to kind of piggyback on what Bobby says, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, because at the end of the day, if the state police actually gave you a bill, there's no way that you would be able to pay the state police bill. There's no way. And I know over the past, I believe it's been at least 2 years in conversations with
with John Hoover and Chris Hawkins. I think they've actually had to go back to their board of supervisors and try to get replenishment for some of their overtime costs, in assistance, and, with the events here. So it's much bigger than just dollars. And even with the sheriff's department, you're taking bodies off the street to come here. Yes, some of that is overtime, but you're cutting your staffing level within your department, and people are hurting these days. I mean, right now, we're actually fortunate. We're actually almost at our staffing level, but most agencies are not, and that's cyclical. But nobody, you don't budget for special events. I mean, you do, we just don't. And, we're the home team here, obviously, we have to put it on, but you couldn't have a special event in this town without the assistance of other agencies. That's just the way it is. Thank you.
And
yes, it's expensive. I mean, it's extremely expensive. I mean, literally, if we counted every penny, these are very conservative numbers, trust me. I mean, I think it's easily, you could probably double it and still be in the ballpark. Now for the little question. There was an unspoken rule that if a bunch of people wanted to get together, as long as it was less than 25 people, they could go to a park and play tennis or softball or croquet or whatever. Is there, what defines a special event?
I would have to plead ignorance, to be quite honest with you, other than what I have in front of me. I had received an email from a nice young lady who wants to have her kid's birthday party at Torrey Smith, for example. And short of charging her money to hold the spot, I don't know if that necessarily counts as a special event. And somebody can slap my wrist because I wasn't going to ask the young lady for a special events permit and the cost, because she wanted to use Torrey Smith for an hour to have a nice birthday party for her kid. That might be something we look at with the application, what defines a special event. I don't know if we want to get in the habit of, pardon the term, nickel and diming folks for having a small event. But I think anytime it requires departments to get involved, we should probably look at it. And by that, I mean, Bruce, not anymore, but if he would give us 3 or 4 officers for security, and Rob has to get his folks out there to cut the grass for a special event and clean up trash, I think then you start moving into what you define as a special event. But right now, I don't know if we have that mechanism in place. Something we should discuss, though.
Thank you.
Yep.
What's the smallest class of event?
The smallest class of event is the D, which is 100 people or less. But again, to the councilwoman's point or question, I had a young lady ask if her and her friends could go on the beach and exercise. How much would an event be? I was like, are you going to have a loudspeaker? No. Are you going to charge your friends to be there? No. Do you want us to take the area of the beach off? No. Well, that's not really a special event. I think it's just a bunch of friends exercising on the beach. So maybe in the language of the 100 person or less / private, we could put a threshold of 25 people or something like that. Maybe that's when you start charging a special event fee.
Or maybe it's the reservation of space.
True.
If you would like it to be uninterrupted.
Correct.
By the public.
Correct.
Then it is a special event. And if it's not, you don't care if it's uninterrupted by the public, then it's a bunch of ladies exercising on the beach.
Correct. And I asked those sorts of questions, and she said, we just didn't want to get in trouble.
I can't be guys. He just happened to say ladies, I guess.
Well, that was who called me. It was young. It was a lady.
It could be dogs. No,
It could be.
no dogs on the beach. No, yes, dogs. on the
Karen's got a
beach
place for them to go.
after
She wants to have special events at Robin Grove, be my guest.
with a leash.
Correct.
I stepped in that one.
Yeah. Literally.
Nice choice of words.
Right. Anybody else?
Ms. Mack,
Yes, I just want to encourage when you're looking at revamping the events permit, to make sure you invite NGOs to that conversation.
That's not happened in the past with bad outcomes, so it'd be a.
Well, considering 60% of what we do is through folks like yourself, then of course, I think we should probably
Not myself, but yes.
invite you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on special events? No?
I'd
All
just
right.
like to take a second to thank Mr. Duke for all of his hard work on this process and taking on this endeavor. As part of my role in coming here, figuring out ways to streamline processes and make things a little bit more efficient. Early on, it was evident that there was some double booking happening at our parks and at our beaches. So I made the decision to align our special events process with Mr. Duke and with his staff. And I'm just very happy with all the work that he's done this summer to make our event possible. And I'd like to thank him.
So modest, she did the power cut. She had to correct all the mistakes.
Okay, traffic study. I know, almost there.
While we work to get Mr. Blair up on the screen, just to intro into this item, early on, there were a number of concerns and complaints as it relates to speeding through various parts of our town. So working with VDOT and Mr. Murphy, we procured the services of the traffic group to get initial baseline data as we prepare for our parking study, as we know that this parking issue is an important issue for the town. So Mr. Blair is going to give some initial reports on the study and his work back on the Labor Day weekend. And he's also going to give a highlight on some of the classifications of vehicles that we see in our town that may change the perception as we see speeding and vehicles through our town.
Is that supposed to be a person?
A person is there.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
Here he is.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Hold on. I think we're good. You can go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep. We can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You put a mic on.
Yep, there we go. It's on. Okay, talk. You can go
Yeah, can
ahead.
you hear me? Great. Hi, folks. My name is John Blair with the Traffic Group. As Indio had explained, the town had reached out to us to do some traffic counts over the Labor Day weekend. We completed 9 locations, traffic count locations for a 4-day period over the Labor Day holiday in evaluating the type of traffic, volume of traffic, and the traffic within the town area. Real quick. I don't know if that's visible to everyone, but this outlays the 9 locations that we counted across the town. As I said, there were 2 types of count types that we took, volume counts as well as classification that came in. Federal Highway Department has outlined 13 different classifications of vehicles that we counted using the road tubes for the. I think in general, the findings to the traffic group were very similar to what we've seen in counting traffic for VDOT in and around the town in the past. For instance, in location 1, which is Colonial Avenue, we witnessed about 9,600 average daily vehicles that traveled through that corridor, basically the main roadway that enters into the town of Colonial Beach. Roughly the largest travel day was Saturday, probably not a big surprise. There were 11,000 vehicles that day that came into the corridor, followed by about 9,600 on Sunday, and the average on Friday and Monday was also right around that number, 9,600 vehicles.
Washington Avenue, a little closer to the beach, was the second volume location we took. We saw about 7,200 vehicles there, the average daily traffic volume, with the largest on Saturday at about 8,900 vehicles, followed by Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday were the highest volume of traffic through Labor Day weekend. Those two locations were only volume locations. We strictly looked at the total number of vehicles present. All the other locations, the other 7 locations, were classification and speed locations, where we identified classification of vehicles based on length-based and axle-based information using road tubes, and then speed over the average distance. Euclid Avenue, and I'll just point out here, these locations, I believe, were indicated both by the town manager, Department of Public Works, and the police department in putting together locations of concern in regards to the traffic, the volume, those locations. Look, one of the things that we did notice in the classification of vehicles, with the exception of the counts on Virginia 205 that were taken, the rest of the town saw a pretty high significant, what we call classification 1, which is typically noted to be like a motorcycle. It also is how the golf carts are picked up within the town. So we saw probably about 30% of the total traffic volumes throughout the town are actually golf carts, which we thought to be very interesting. The town also confirmed that that is something that we would see. Our technicians also made note of seeing the golf carts in doing the traffic counts. With the exception of Virginia 205, the other 70%, 70 to 80% of the traffic types were cars, regular passenger vehicles. There were a few trucks seen, some lighter trucks seen down at location 5, which is Irving. Looked to be like delivery trucks, not many, maybe 4 or 5 a day. Obviously, we saw a large number of buses at location 9, which is First Street, which was by the school. So in general, there was not a lot of truck traffic through the town. We did see a percentage of trucks at locations 7 and 8, which are 205 here. Those we saw about 10% heavy truck traffic. So these would be larger trucks, tractor trailers, and other delivery vehicles that seem to travel close to the town, but not necessarily within the town's smaller rural roads. In looking at some of the other information, as regards to speeds, the way the traffic volumes and speeds are detected, we typically go by what's called the 85th percentile. The 85th percentile basically defines the speed at which 85% of the drivers are actually traveling. Throughout the town, with the exception of Virginia 205, there was not a large amount of 85th percentiles over the 25-mile-an-hour limit, which indicates that in general, the majority of vehicles are traveling at a 25-mile-an-hour. Posted limit, I believe, is 25 throughout the town. One thing of interest, though, was locations 9 and 6, which actually are the 2 locations on either side of the high school and elementary school, which is First Street and Jackson Street. We did see an 85th percentile in the 29-mile-an-hour range, which does indicate that there is actually traffic that seems to be traveling greater than what is the 25 posted limit. I do think that's interesting and also concerning, considering that that is a school zone and a school area. So we were kind of surprised by those numbers. The traffic data that we collected was broken down in 15-minute intervals. We did provide that data over to the town, and it does outline some specific areas where you can see when those times of speeders exist. So the hope is that that information can be shared with the police department, and that might help them to better focus their enforcement time and when to actually look for issues of speeding. The other two locations where speeding was prominent was Virginia 205. The limit here is already a little bit higher. I believe it comes in at a 40 mile an hour and then may come down to 25. But the 85th percentiles there were close to 50 miles an hour. So that was pretty interesting to see that. Although we normally expect traffic to travel a little bit faster, given that it's the coming into the town, we were a little surprised to see that at a 10% above what, or 10 mile an hour above what the posted limit was.
Yeah, but that pin is right at the 55 mile an hour line.
No, it's a ways out.
No.
So 55 is.
It's 35.
Oh, you're paying
Yeah, the
7?
pin that's down below food line, that's right when it drops.
It drops
That's
off.
the 35.
35 is
Yeah.
dropped to 35.
Coming into town, yeah. Is it the sign right at the horse barn?
Yeah.
One of the other things I also thought was interesting was a majority of the traffic volumes on 205 mostly came in from the northwestern side of town. The average daily traffic coming in from Site A, as an example, was about 8,600 vehicles per day. As I had mentioned before, right here at number 1 is about 9,600 vehicles. And then down here by the just southwest of the food line, we saw only about 6,800 vehicles that came in from this location. So there's definitely more traffic coming in and utilizing 205 closer to the DPW facility. And that may also be related to some of the local traffic as well. But that was a little bit surprising to me, considering that the food line and other area was down here. I thought that perhaps more traffic might be coming from that direction, but it definitely does appear to most of the traffic originating from the town coming in on 205 comes in from the north western side. So in looking at the relative speeds in the other areas, actually down in Irving and Lossing, actually saw 85th percentiles that were less than what the posted limit was. So there was actually not speeding at all. In actuality, it's the opposite. You're seeing traffic unable to move at the posted limit. One of the things that I think is important, although I don't think there was any massive findings where we found something that was never seen before, it was kind of what we expected. I think that's important because oftentimes the perception is not what the reality is. People perceive that vehicles may be speeding on their roadway when in fact they may be doing 25 miles an hour. It just appears as a pedestrian or someone on a bicycle as if they're going much faster than what they are. But that's not to say that there aren't speeders. There were very few vehicles that did go about 5 miles over 25 miles an hour, but very few over 10 miles an hour over the limit. So very few vehicles, maybe like 1 or 2 vehicles in the whole town over 35 miles an hour in the 4-day period. Again, other things that could be attributed to that, it was a holiday weekend, it could have been busy, there could have been a lot more law enforcement around, a lot more pedestrians. Again, like I said, we saw about 30% of the traffic throughout the town was golf carts. So they may be going slower. And the other thing that was happy to report is that those golf carts don't seem to be using 205, so they're not venturing outside of what is the local roads. So, are there any questions about the traffic data? We did, like I said, we shared the map locations, the worksheets that provided with the physical GPS locations, pictures. and all the files in Excel. So, and of course, if there are any follow-up questions, the traffic group is of course available to answer any questions that people have in reference to specific data that was collected. Thank you for the opportunity.